Yes, guys, I know. This is Jake Tapper's face, and I know how much we don't want to see Jake Tapper's face. But this time around, CNN did the unthinkable. They actually went after Democrats and called out the corruption. And the one they went after was somebody that arguably was being groomed for probably a presidential run at some point in the Democrat Party, which is New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Okay, and Chris Cuomo works at CNN. Nobody needs to be reminded about that, but they have family ties at that company. So for Jake Tapper to come out and call out Andrew Cuomo is a big deal. Okay, and I gotta give CNN credit where credit is due. Right, I'm gonna trash them when they bad. I'll give them credit when they good. That's how you be consistent. Now, I will say, conservatives need to take a victory lap on this, because we've been warning people about how bad Cuomo has been. We were the first people screaming about the nursery home deaths. Okay, CNN is late to the party, right? Jake Tapper towards the end of this is gonna try to act like he's, above it all, when it's like, nah, bro, you're complicit. But anyways, I'll get to that later. And I'm going to take a victory lap on this personally, because I knew that once Trump was done, once this impeachment thing was done, the media was going to start going after the current administration and the Democrats. They don't have a choice. What else are they going to talk about? They only can talk about Trump for so long, guys. And I knew this was going to happen. They're going to start putting the spotlight on the Biden administration. They're going to start calling out the Democrats, because the media is corporate first and foremost. Right? Doesn't mean that there's not a liberal bias. There's definitely a lefty bias with CNN. But they're going to have to make some money some way. Right? Because Trump is done. At least for now. So it's going to be interesting to see how CNN does this about face. And it seems to be starting with Andrew Cuomo. Let's take a listen to Jake Tapper.
We just saw a small but respectable number of politicians willing to break with their partisan allegiances and criticize an intimidating leader in the face of loss of life. I'm not talking about the 7 Senate Republicans who voted to convict Donald Trump, Senators Burr, Cassidy, Collins, Murkowski, Romney, Sasson, Toomey. I'm talking about the small number of Democratic officials in New York publicly expressing outrage after the latest development in the scandal surrounding New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and the numbers of New York nursing home residents who were fatally infected with COVID. You may recall the Cuomo administration last March told nursing homes, quote, "No resident shall be denied readmission or admission to the nursing home solely based on a confirmed or suspected diagnosis of COVID-19, unquote." Nursing homes took in thousands of seniors with COVID, potentially infecting thousands more, such as 89-year-old Norman Arbini. After the Cuomo directive, his family pulled him out of a nursing home after he already had gotten a fever, and Arbini died at home from COVID. Now, did he get COVID because of Cuomo's directive? We don't know for sure, but his family says it's not rock.
Come on, man. I'm not going to say for sure either, but, for certain purposes, but come on, man. Like, it's not like Cuomo's directive prevented it from getting worse, right? Or prevented, right? I mean, you guys saw the directive. You saw what it said. Admission can't be denied solely because of having COVID. That's what it said. So, I mean, if they let people in that had it based off an interpretation of that, even if it's a false interpretation, it's not an unreasonable interpretation. Cuomo should take some blame for that.
Rocket science.
It was the absolute worst decision anybody could make in a time of a pandemic.
It's, of course, impossible to exactly ascertain how many nursing home deaths are linked to the Cuomo directive, and certainly part of the reason is that the Cuomo administration's, quote...
And see, this is the problem I have with Jake Tapper. I gotta give him credit for going after Cuomo, but, hey, y'all connected every single last COVID death to Trump. You put every single last COVID death in this country on Trump. Why don't you use that same level of analysis with Cuomo? Right? Go ahead and just put it all on Cuomo. Apparently, the leaders of the state and the country are responsible for every death. So in a situation like this, apply the same standard to Cuomo. See, they're going after him, but they're not going after him with the same smoke. It's not the same smoke. It's a little smoke. You're still not going far enough. I mean, we've seen they blamed every single COVID death on Trump. Come on now.
Published nursing home data reflected and may have been undercounted by as much as 50%, according to fellow Democrat and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Now, that's because infected nursing home residents who were then taken to hospitals where they died, they were omitted from the data. An interesting decision for an administration under fire for months for the nursing home directive. So Governor Cuomo, who has declared...
Not from you guys. Y'all was too busy blaming everything on Trump. Y'all didn't cover this scandal like you should have. See, again, my problem with CNN. They're trying to act like, well, we've done everything right the whole time. We've been calling it straight down the middle the whole time. We've been on this. No, the only thing that's been on CNN for the last 3 months is Trump, 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 Trump. And since this whole pandemic thing started, it has been Trump, 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 Trump. So, miss me with this. Y'all was trying to have Cuomo on, and y'all was trying to make him out to be some type of leader and, some type of, model example of how you handle the virus, even though his state has been performing the worst. Y'all did not come after him with the same smoke that you came after Trump. And Cuomo has a lot more to do with his state's handling of the virus than Trump has in any state in this country, period. I mean, that's just common sense.
Applying to appear on the show, despite dozens of requests over the past year, including this past week, made a bad decision that may have cost lives. And then his administration hid that data from the public. Cuomo issued an executive order changing the advisory on May 10th, requiring patients to test negative before returning to their nursing homes. But that was obviously too late for those already infected. Last August, New York legislators pressed Cuomo for more information, and that's where this latest private admission, this latest development in the scandal from his secretary, Melissa DeRosa, comes in. She said that the data was withheld because, quote, right around the same time they were asking for it, President Trump turns this into a giant political football. He starts tweeting that we killed everyone in nursing homes. He directs the Department of Justice to do an investigation into us. Basically, we froze, unquote. In a public statement Friday, she also blamed the second wave of the virus for the delay in reporting. But this all fit in perfectly with what Governor Cuomo himself said on January 29th when asked about the damning report from the state attorney general.
It's not about pointing fingers or blame. It's that this became a political football, right? Look, whether a person died in a hospital or died in a nursing home, it's the people died. People died.
But where those people died and why they died, and if they died because of Cuomo's March directive, that is information in the public interest. And fear of political enemies using the data against you, that's not an excuse for covering it up from the public. This was Democratic New York City Mayor de Blasio's reaction after reading about DeRosa's comments in the New York Post, which broke the story.
It's a really disturbing report. It's very troubling. We've got to know more. We now need a full accounting of what happened. Think about seniors who their lives were in the balance.
Because of your decisions, thousands of people died who did not have to die, tweeted a Democratic state legislator. This is a betrayal of the public trust, wrote another. This is criminal, said yet another. Among the governor's chief critics is New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, a Republican who refused to hold Trump accountable for the loss of life under his watch because of the mishandling of the pandemic or the January 6th MAGA terrorist attack at the Capitol. Stefanik, in fact, helped spread Trump's big lie. So you might find it difficult to take seriously Stefanik's stated outrage. Because if you're only upset about bad, even fatal leadership decisions and behavior based on the partisan affiliation of that leader, you're not operating from a place of righteousness, you're operating from a place of craven self-interest. Which brings us back.
See, I love how Jake Tapper makes this statement as if he's above all that. We don't act in partisan self-interest here at CNN, even though that's what we've been doing for the last 4 years. Pushing Russiagate, pushing Black Lives Matter as peaceful protest, blaming it on Trump when it had nothing to do with Trump. Blaming it on Trump. Blaming the virus on Trump. Blaming every death from the virus on Trump. Not covering the Hunter Biden story. Covering it up, saying it's Russian disinformation. Then turning around and putting that same story on the front page of CNN once the election was over. But this guy, Jake Tapper, is trying to tell me about being a partisan hack and just acting in the interest of the party. When that's what CNN has been doing, again, for the last 4 years. And this is what bothers me about CNN. Right? It's this aura of I'm above everybody. Elitism. We don't do this. We have real journalists here. When you guys are the swamp, you're the worst of the worst when it comes to calling it straight. Okay? You're the worst. And the only reason you're calling out Cuomo now is because you have nothing else to talk about. If Trump's impeachment trial was still going on, this story would not have been ran. Just like they didn't run the story or talk about it ever since this pandemic started. This story has been around for a minute, right? Everybody knew about the poorly written directive. Everybody knew about that. But see, they didn't care about it. CNN didn't care about it because it didn't fit the narrative that Trump is responsible for each and every last death. So no, we can't run with that right now. Not right now. We got to put that on the back burner for when Trump is out of office, and that way we can start, acting like we're fair and balanced, that we call it straight, that we're above politics, and you're not. And see, that's why I try to tell you guys, the media is establishment, but they're also corporate. They're also corporate. They have a corporate interest to uphold, right? They have a profit incentive to uphold. CNN knows their ratings are going down the drain, and that if they don't start actually really covering the Biden administration and the Democrats and really start going after the Democrats, that they will literally have no viewership. Because, again, the Republicans have been attacked as much as you can attack any party, right? There's not much more to say about the Republicans at this point in terms of lines of attack against them. But there's plenty to say about the Democrats. Plenty to say about the Democrats. And I think that what you're going to start to see moving forward is CNN, slowly but surely, the narrative is going to start to change where CNN is going to be going after the Democrats. They're going to be going after Biden. They're going to finally start doing their jobs. But unfortunately, it's too little, too late, because you're still not going far enough. Because what you should be doing is you should be calling for Cuomo to resign. You should be like, if this is true, then Cuomo needs to resign. The same way that you basically have been calling for Trump to be convicted, to be impeached and convicted, you should call for Cuomo to resign. Again, they're not going far enough. And this is why they're still left-leaning, okay? Because they don't bring the same smoke to the Democrats they bring to the Republicans. Imagine if that was Trump. He got to go. He got to go. Impeached. Gone. Done. They be calling for it. Cuomo does it. He just needs to come do an interview on CNN. There needs to be an investigation. We need to know more about this. When you should be calling for him to resign. Because that's what you would have done if this was Trump. You would have said, no, he got to go. You would have investigated nothing. You would have assumed that it was true, and you would have went for it and called for his resignation the same way y'all did Russiagate. So, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.